The breeding assignment. The ship Eltharius floated silently above Earth's colony Zone 7. Inside, alien specialist Scialara of Kirellin Prime read her orders for the 5th time. She didn't blink. She didn't feel anything. Begin Stage 1. Human Reproduction Experiment. Assigned partner. Daniel Holt. Male. Healthy. Age 30. Subject cooperative. Her race, the Kirellins, were known across the galaxy for science, cold logic, and no emotions. To them, intimacy was only biology, a task, a duty. Scialara had no interest in pleasure. Her goal was simple: collect results, report back, and return home. She entered the transport pod and traveled down to the human colony. As the door opened, she stepped onto soft soil under a pink sky. The air felt warm, unpleasant. Human structures were simple, made of wood and steel. So, primitive. A human stood near a garden, turning the soil. He wore a white shirt, sleeves rolled, and smiled when he saw her. "You must be Scialara," he said. His voice was soft, calm, welcoming. Scialara didn't respond with a smile. Kirellins didn't smile. "I am here for the breeding task. Are you prepared?" The human paused, then chuckled. "That's one way to say hello." She tilted her head. "Do you not wish to begin?" He wiped his hands and looked at her carefully. "We don't just jump into things. Humans take time. Time reduces efficiency," Scialara replied. "Sometimes efficiency kills the experience," he said, offering her a seat under a tree. She didn't understand what he meant, but she sat. They didn't begin the task that day. Instead, Daniel made tea. He poured it into 2 cups and handed her one. "What is this for?" she asked. "It's just tea. We drink it, relax, and talk. Talk is not required for reproduction." He laughed again. "You might be surprised." As the sun began to set, Daniel spoke about the colony, about Earth's seasons, about music and rain. Scialara listened, confused. She had studied human mating patterns. Nowhere did it mention this part. She noticed how his eyes moved when he laughed, how his fingers gently brushed a flower petal beside him, and she noticed her own body reacting. Her heart rate increased. Her breathing slowed. Strange, unplanned. She stood up quickly. "I will return tomorrow. Perhaps then we begin." Daniel nodded. "Sure, but next time bring questions. I like talking to someone curious." Scialara said nothing. She turned and left, but her steps were not as steady as when she arrived. Back. On her ship, she reported her status. No physical engagement completed. Subject requests delay. Behavior, unusual. Kindness observed. Unclear purpose. Her superiors responded coldly. "Your duty is not conversation. Begin collection. Emotions are weakness." Scialara stared at the screen. Something inside her shifted. Just a little. She closed the report and thought about the sound of Daniel's laugh. That night in her chamber, she touched her own hand where Daniel had passed her the cup. His skin had been warm. No threat. Just warmth. What was that feeling? She didn't know yet, but for the first time in her life, she wanted to return early. The first touch Scialara returned before sunrise. It was not required. No one ordered her, but still, she arrived early, standing outside the small wooden cabin where the human lived. The air was cool. The sky slowly turned golden. She stood still, trying to understand why her chest felt heavy. The door opened. Daniel stepped out holding a mug. He blinked in surprise. "You're early," he said with a smile. Scialara nodded. "I have recalculated your behavior. You delay reproduction. I have decided to understand this delay." Daniel leaned on the doorframe. "Understanding? Good. Place to start." He invited her inside. The cabin was simple. Wooden floors, small kitchen, books on the shelves. Not advanced, not cold, but warm. "Sit wherever you like." he said. She sat straight on a bench. Daniel placed a mug of something warm in front of her. "What is this?" she asked. "Hot cocoa. Human comfort drink." "I do not need comfort," she said sharply. He chuckled. "Everyone does. They just don't know it yet." They sipped in silence. Then Daniel looked at her gently. "Can I ask something, Saylara?" She blinked. "Yes." "Do you enjoy anything?" She frowned. "My species does not enjoy. We achieve. We improve." He leaned forward slightly. "But when the sun rises and you see light through the trees, when someone smiles at you, do you feel anything here?" He tapped his chest softly. Saylara looked down. "I do not know." Daniel nodded. "Maybe we'll find out." After breakfast, they walked through the colony's edge. Daniel showed her the garden he planted, carrots, peppers, tomatoes. "Plants are like people," he said. "If you don't care for them, they stop growing." Saylara crouched, touching a leaf. "This is not efficient. Machines could grow more food." He smiled. "Maybe, but it wouldn't taste the same." They reached a small lake. The water reflected the sky like a mirror. Saylara looked into it and saw her face next to Daniel's. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. "You gain nothing from this delay." Daniel didn't answer immediately. Then he said, "Because I think you've never been given a choice before." She didn't understand that word. "Choice?" "Yes. A real one. To do something, not because you're ordered, but because you want to." Saylara stared at the lake. "I do not understand want." Daniel reached out slowly. No force, no rush. His fingers brushed her hand, just a soft touch. No mating, no control, just connection. Her hand trembled slightly. Every nerve felt like it was waking up for the first time. She didn't pull away. She didn't speak. Her mind raced. Why is this simple contact more powerful than any stimulation chamber? Why does my heart feel like it is lifting? Daniel whispered. "Was that your first touch by choice?" She nodded. "I think it was." He didn't say anything more. He just stood with her, looking at the lake, letting her feel something she had no word for. Not yet. Back on the ship, Eltharius, her commander reviewed her report. No contact. Initiated. Subject resisting core assignment. Delay unnecessary. They prepared to recall her for disobedience, but Saylara had not reported the truth. She had left out the part about the garden, the cocoa, the lake, and the touch, because those moments weren't part of the mission. They were part of her. And for the first time in her life, that felt important. Alien reactions inside the orbiting research ship Eltharius. Alarms were silent, but tension ran high. High Matron Kelvara, Sayalara's superior, read the status report with narrowed eyes. Subject has delayed reproduction for 6 Earth cycles. No physical engagement. Emotional contamination suspected. She turned to the communication officer. "Recall her. We must correct the failure." But Saylara was already one step ahead. She had disabled the recall beacon. She wasn't ready to leave. Not yet. On the surface, Saylara stood by the same lake. This time, she wasn't just watching the water. She was watching Daniel. He was building a wind chime from polished metal scraps. It made no sense to her. "There is no function," she said. He smiled. "Maybe not. But when the wind moves, it sings." Saylara tilted her head. "You enjoy sound that has no purpose?" "Not everything has to be useful," he said. "Some things are just beautiful." She sat beside him in the grass, watching the pieces sway in the breeze. Daniel looked at her hands. "They don't shake anymore," he said. "I noticed." She replied softly. "My heart still does." He laughed gently. "That's not weakness, Saylara, that's being alive." Later that day, Saylara accessed her species data pad alone in Daniel's cabin. She searched terms like joy, pleasure, connection, choice. All were marked as irrelevant or dangerous by Kirillin systems. Her people treated those words as viruses. She now treated them as treasure. That evening, Daniel gave her something. A book. Paper. Bound by thread. "What is this?" she asked. "It's a collection of earth poetry," he said. "About love. About longing. About being human." She opened it slowly. The words inside made her throat tighten. She didn't understand every sentence, but she felt them, like tiny sparks on cold skin. The next day, her people contacted her directly. The screen appeared mid-air. Cold faces. Cold voices. Report status. Begin subject breeding or return immediately. Saylara stared back. Her voice was calm. "I need more time." "That is a breach of protocol," Kelvara snapped. "I am not malfunctioning," Saylara said. "Then complete the mission." "I am learning," she replied. The screen flickered. "You are contaminated." She turned off the transmission. Her hands were trembling again, but this time not from fear, from anger, from independence. Daniel entered the room and saw her. "They contacted you?" She nodded. "They think I am broken." Daniel sat beside her. "What do you think?" She didn't answer immediately. Then she said softly, "I think I'm becoming whole." She stood up, breathing deeply. "I want to experience more." Daniel smiled. "We can walk tomorrow. There's a place I know. Sunflowers grow wild there." "Will you touch my hand again?" she asked. He looked into her eyes. "Only if you ask me to." She stepped closer. "I want to." The stars that night felt warmer, not because the planet had changed, but because she had. And somewhere above, the cold eyes of the Kirellans watched in silence, failing to understand how one human was breaking down centuries of emotional walls, with nothing but kindness. Forbidden discovery, Saylara stood in the field of golden sunflowers, their petals brushing her arms as the wind moved gently through them. She had never seen anything like this on Kirellin Prime. Her world was made of steel, silence and sterile light. But here, everything felt alive. And so did she. Daniel walked beside her, smiling softly as the sun warmed their faces. "This is my favorite place," he said, "because everything here grows freely." Saylara nodded, touching one of the tall flowers. "They are not controlled." "No," Daniel said. "They choose their own path toward the light." She looked at him, heart quietly thudding. "I wish I understood that feeling." "You will," he said gently. "You're already halfway there." But far above, the Eltharius was no longer watching silently. High Matron Kelvara had seen enough. "She has formed attachment," she said sharply to the council. "Emotional bond confirmed. Mission has failed." "Shall we extract her by force?" asked another. Kelvara nodded. "And erase the human," she added. "He is the infection." That night, back in the cabin, Saylara couldn't sleep. She stared at the poetry book Daniel gave her. One line repeated in her mind. "To feel is to risk, but not to feel is not to live." She felt something wet on her cheek. She touched it, confused. It was her first tear. She woke Daniel just before dawn. "I must leave," she whispered. He sat up quickly. "What? Why?" "My people are coming for me." I disobeyed. Daniel's jaw clenched. "Will they punish you?" "They may erase me, wipe memory, reset function." Daniel stood up. "Then we run." Saylara looked away. "You don't have to risk anything." He stepped close. "I already did, the moment I met you." They escaped into the hills, through mist and rocky trails under falling stars. Daniel carried supplies. Saylara carried fear, but also something more. Hope. They hid in an old research cave left by early colonists. Power still worked. Doors sealed. As Daniel set up a signal jammer, Saylara sat beside him in the dark. "I am afraid," she said quietly. "I am too," he replied. She looked at him, What if they erase me? He touched her cheek, wiping away a second tear. Then, we make every second count. In that silence, Saylara leaned into him. Not for warmth, not for orders, but for comfort. And then, with a voice soft and trembling, she whispered, I don't want to be a subject anymore. I want to be someone who chooses. Daniel smiled and kissed her forehead. Then start with this moment. For the first time, her hands reached for his, not to complete a mission, but to feel safe, to feel seen, to feel alive. Meanwhile, in orbit, the extraction team landed on the surface. Kelvara activated the override tracker. They would find her, erase the human, and reset the broken girl, but they had no idea that she was no longer theirs to control. She was already free. Escape through emotion. The cave was dark, but Saylara had never felt more awake. She and Daniel sat close together, wrapped in silence, listening for any sound outside. The Eltharius extraction team had landed. Her people were near. Their machines could track breathing, body heat, even tears. And now, Saylara had all three. Daniel adjusted the signal jammer. It might buy us time, he whispered. Saylara watched him closely. You are not trained for this. He looked up. No. I'm not a soldier. I'm a gardener. A reader. A man who fell in love. Saylara lowered her eyes. Your love puts you in danger. Daniel shook his head. No. My love gives me reason to fight. Outside the cave, the search began. Kiralan drones scanned every hill. Soldiers in silver armor marched without sound. Weapons ready. They weren't coming to talk. They were coming to erase. To delete the emotion Saylara had found. Inside, Saylara opened her data link. Daniel raised an eyebrow. That's traceable. I know, she said softly. She opened her personal log, once locked behind emotionless code, and she began to speak. This is Saylara of Kirellin Prime. I was assigned a human to reproduce with. Instead, I met someone who saw me. Not as a task, not as a subject, as a person. Her voice cracked. My people say emotion is infection, but what I feel now is not disease. It is clarity, it is fire, it is mine. She uploaded the message, to her species, to the stars, to everyone. The extraction team received it seconds later, confused, unprepared. They expected silence, not a confession, not a revolution. Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder. You just started something. Saylara looked into his eyes. Then we finish it together. Footsteps echoed in the tunnel. Shadows danced on the walls. Drones hummed. 2 armored Kirellin soldiers entered. Their weapons rose. Saylara stepped forward, unarmed, eyes calm. You don't have to do this. The soldiers paused. One of them, a young female, hesitated. You are infected, she said coldly. I am awake, Saylara replied. Daniel stood beside her. Erase us, he said, voice steady. But you can't erase what she felt. The other soldier lowered his weapon, slightly. Feeling is forbidden, he murmured. Saylara shook her head. Feeling is freedom. Silence filled the cave. Then, the young soldier took a step back. Power down, no fire, no order, just choice. The other followed. They turned and left. The cave remained quiet for a moment. Then Saylara turned to Daniel and smiled. A real smile, soft and unsure. He smiled back, tears in his eyes. No weapon could have done that, he whispered. She nodded. Because emotion isn't weakness, she said. It's our greatest power. In orbit, the Kirellin command was in chaos. The message had been intercepted by other fleets. Other females heard it. Some listened, some paused, and for the first time in Kirellin history, some felt. Revolution of the heart across the stars, Sayalara's. Message moved faster than any weapon. It passed through secure channels. It leaked into restricted zones. It broke firewalls and entered minds not meant to feel. And in secret corners of cold Kirellin cities, Female scientists paused mid-task. Drone pilots took off their helmets. Young cadets placed trembling fingers over their hearts, feeling something they couldn't name. Because someone had said what they were never allowed to think. I was not broken. I was awakening. On Earth's colony, Scialara and Daniel walked openly again. The Corellan soldiers never returned. Instead, messages began to arrive. Quiet, hidden transmissions. From other Corellan females. Short, careful. Your words moved me. I thought I was alone. I cried. I didn't know what crying was. I want more. Scialara replied to each one with warmth and honesty. She had no plan, but her heart had already started a movement. Daniel watched her one evening as she sat near the lake, typing a reply to a message from Corellan Sector 14. You've become something powerful, he said. She looked up, puzzled. I was supposed to be a subject, she whispered. You're a symbol now, he replied. A mirror that showed others their reflection, but not all reactions were kind. Corellan high matrons across the empire gathered in panic. She's undoing us, said one. Our order is collapsing, said another. But none dared speak publicly, because the truth was leaking, and truth, once seen, could not be unseen. To stop the spread, the High Council issued a final statement. Emotions are unauthorized. Scialara is defective. Do not engage. But it was too late. Inside the cities, walls were being written on in secret. To feel is to choose. Emotion is not a virus. We are more than function. It wasn't war. It was a revolution of the heart. One night, Scialara received a long message from a young medic. They caught me watching your message. I was afraid. But then I told them I won't be silent anymore. You gave me courage. You made me feel human. Scialara's hands trembled as she read it. Tears fell again. Daniel saw her. You okay? He asked. She nodded. They're beginning to feel what I felt. In your garden. When you gave me cocoa. Daniel smiled, eyes full of pride. Then, it was worth it. Later, she stood before a group of mixed settlers, humans, Corellan rebels, and others curious about this change. They asked, what do we do now? She replied simply, we live, we feel, we love. We begin again, not as machines, but as people. And far away in quiet shadows, others began whispering her name. Not as a number, not as a case file, but as a beacon, a rebel, a teacher, a woman who dared to feel. From function to freedom, the sky above Earth Colony 7 was painted in soft shades of orange and violet. In the garden near the lake, flowers bloomed without command. Bees buzzed, wind carried laughter, and in the center of it all, Scialara stood, no longer in her sterile Corellan uniform, but in a loose, flowing dress woven by human hands. Her posture was relaxed, her face calm. She was free. Beside her, Daniel tended to the plants. His hands were dirty, his smile light. This one's yours, he said, handing her a small sprout. Let's plant it together. She took it gently. Together they pressed it into the soil. 3 cycles had passed since Scialara's message broke through the Corellan communication grid. At first the High Council tried to bury it. They failed. Then they tried to erase her name. But it only spread further. Now across moons and stars, emotion schools had begun in secret. Young Corellan women whispered poetry to one another. Songs were written. Names were chosen, not assigned. And each time a new one spoke their truth, they remembered the one who started it. Scialara. A small shuttle landed near the colony. From it stepped a nervous, purple-skinned Corellan girl. She held a tablet close, eyes wide as she scanned the area. When she saw Scialara, she froze, then walked forward. You are real, the girl whispered. Scialara nodded gently. So are you. I want to learn how to feel, not just copy it. Truly feel. Scialara smiled softly. You've already started. Later that evening, Scialara sat with Daniel by the Lake, watching the stars reflect on the water. She spoke quietly. Back then, I was just a function, a code in a mission file. Daniel nodded, listening. But now, I feel joy when the wind moves the flowers. I feel sadness when I read old messages. I feel love. He reached for her hand. She didn't flinch. She didn't calculate. She simply held it back. Sailara had once been created to be efficient, emotionless, perfect. But perfection was hollow. Now she was something else. Something more. She was someone who chose her own voice, who found pleasure in connection, not just procreation. Across the stars, a new Kirellan child was born. Her parents didn't assign her a number. They gave her a name, Ilara. It meant first dawn. And her mother whispered stories of a woman who taught their people how to feel again. In the end, no battles were won with guns, no cities burned, but a revolution had still come. Quiet, soft, unstoppable. And it all began with one human, and one forbidden smile.